YouTube, what is good? We are right back at you with another video. Today, we're going to be talking about the attributes for hitting, which ones matter, especially if you're trying to make a God Squad to push World Series, and especially, we're going to be talking about what these attributes even mean. Because let's be honest, there's a bunch of attributes, there's a bunch of different categories, but you'll be surprised, not all of them do something. So watch till the end of this video, you'll learn which ones actually are the most important and which ones don't do anything. With that being said, please be sure to leave a like and sub to the channel. If I miss anything along the way, let me know in the comments what I missed. I'm curious what your feedback is. But let's get right into the video. Let's start talking about the first attribute on this list. We're going to be starting to talk about the contact. So for the card we're going to be using as an example for both the attributes and the quirks that you should be looking for on any card is going to be the 99 Finest Mike Trout. Now, if you've had the luxury of using this card, you already know this card is an absolute monster, but let's really take a deep dive into these attributes to see what makes him as good as he is. So the first thing up is the contact. As you can see, he's 117 versus righties and 125 versus lefties at parallel 4. Now, this attribute right here influences the size of the PCI. If you don't know what the PCI is, that's what the game uses to say, are you on the ball or not? Now, if you're playing on All-Star or lower, this stat doesn't really matter as much as some of the others. The only time you really start seeing contact being a legitimate factor is when you're going into the Hall of Fame and Legend difficulties, where the PCI gets super small. Now, I do want to let y'all know that higher contact does not mean you'll have more hits with the card. Whether or not you get a hit is an influence of contact, power, and timing, as well as PCI placement on the baseball. One last thing about contact, if you're playing on Hall of Fame or higher difficulty, as I said earlier, you want these numbers to be as high as possible. However, I personally recommend using any card with at least 105 non-paralleled contact. So at P5, it gets to 110 contact, and that just gives you that little bit more of a competitive edge because the PCI is going to be bigger, and you're actually going to be able to hit the ball. So next up, we have power. Mike Trout has 125 power both against righties and lefties. This stat right here drives his ability to hit the baseball hard. This is evident where if you ever have a perfect with a pitcher, a lot of times it may only be 91, 92 miles per hour off the bat, but almost every single time you get a perfect with a high power card, especially a card like Mike Trout, you'll see the ball 100 plus miles an hour every single time. Now, like I said earlier, the ability to get a hit is a combination of power, contact, timing, and PCI placement. If the timing and the PCI placement are at least decent, and you have a high power card with decent contact, this gives you the ability to have high exit velocity off of the bat, which means that could lead to more hits. So next up, we're going to be talking about vision. This is something that has a lot of effect in terms of hitting foul balls. So one thing you want to keep in mind with the vision is that there are 2 PCIs for every swing that you take. There's the inner PCI, which is influenced by the contact, but there's also the outer PCI, which is influenced by vision. The higher the vision of the card, the higher that outer PCI is. This outer PCI allows you to hit foul tips and really just foul balls in general, even if your inner PCI is not fully on the baseball. Now, obviously, this number is very important to have at a high level. Mike Trout's is at an 85. That's not the best, but quite honestly, if you're able to get the PCI on the ball consistently, the vision statistic really doesn't matter that much unless the ball is way outside the strike zone and you're swinging at it. Next up, we have discipline. This is a stat that does nothing. In previous games, this attribute was your ability to make successful check swings for balls. However, at least it feels this way, this attribute does nothing anymore because I know from what I've seen and just off of my own gameplay and others' gameplay, check swings are completely random this year in MLB The Show 22. Unfortunately, this attribute is nothing more than just an overall booster at this point. Next up, we have clutch. I'm not 100% sure if clutch really does anything. From what I've seen, it's mostly just like if you get deeper in a count, you get more pitches, your stats get boosted a very tiny bit, but besides that, there's really not much else that clutch does besides boost overall. So I'm going to group these together because they're essentially the same thing. Bunt and drag bunt, that's just your ability to be able to drop a bunt successfully. Obviously, the higher the better. Mike Trout, you really shouldn't be dropping a lot of bunts with him, so 39, 29. This is mostly higher on pitchers and super speed guys that they released earlier in the year. Now, for durability, when you're playing at the competitive level, doesn't mean a whole lot. It's very, very rare that you get an injury unless you take a ball like 110 to the face. But this stat really doesn't mean a whole lot in the Diamond Dynasty sense. This is something that's really just an attribute booster, not really something you need to worry about. So next up, we have the defensive ratings for the positional players. For fielding, this is something where it's just your ability to catch the baseball in general. So let's say Mike Trout is on the run, he puts his glove up and it catches it. That could be due to his 95 overall fielding. Now, let's say he had 65 fielding, there would be a lower percent chance that he catches that ball and commits an error instead of just catching it. This number this year really doesn't mean a whole lot. I've noticed that fielding, as long as you're around the silver to higher mark, you really don't need to worry about much more besides that. So next up, we have the arm rating. Mike Trout's is a 99. That essentially just means his arm strength is the absolute most you can get in this game, and he'll throw the ball as hard as anybody else who has a 99 rating. Next up is the ACC. This value is actually the arm accuracy. So, for example, let's say there's a guy on third base trying to tag home, you catch a fly ball in the center field, and now you're trying to throw him out at the plate. Yes, it's awesome that he has 99 arm, but if his accuracy is bad, there's a pretty solid chance that ball is going to go on a weird angle to the catcher, and there won't be a good way to actually get the out, which could force the guy to score. This attribute matters the most in close plays, mostly in tag situations, but this is an important value to have for the arm statistic. Next up is the reaction. This value can be offset by the speed. So for example, if you're high speed but low reaction, those two can kind of make up for each other, or high reaction and low speed, depending on how low the speed is. But 94 reaction, that's about as good as you're going to get. But this is just the player's ability to read the ball off of the bat and make a good jump to go to that baseball. Speed is self-explanatory, it's just how fast the batter is. Obviously, the higher the better. The steal rating is not something that I normally look at. I really don't think this is a value that's that important. I don't steal a lot in Diamond Dynasty. I think it's about a waste of time because the jumps in the game are just way too inconsistent to actually try to steal frequently, but this is their ability to get a better jump when you're going to steal a base. Then there's base runner aggressiveness. This is nothing more than just a overall booster. This is something that comes into effect on a simulation level, but nothing really gets simulated in MLB The Show, at least on the Diamond Dynasty level. So this is not something you have to worry about for a Diamond Dynasty card. It's okay if this is a low value. So the next thing that you have to worry about are the quirks. Now, a lot of these quirks don't actually do anything. The quirks that don't do anything are called passive quirks, and the reason why they're called passive quirks is because the only reason they have them is because the attribute that they're associated with is high enough to be awarded the quirk. So, for example, Mike Trout has a bunch. Hitting machine, bomber, 20/20 vision, walker, soft hands, quick reflexes, cannon, sniper, speedster, and pressure cooker. All of those quirks do not have any active boost on Mike Trout, and they only list them as quirks because his attribute points are high enough to be awarded them. Now, there's another thing called active quirks, and these are the ones you want to be looking for. These quirks are essentially only on live series cards, at least from what we've seen this year, but these quirks actually boost the stats of your player. So, for example, I'll read them off to you what Mike Trout has. Homebody, Night Player, Unfazed, Dead Red, Breaking Ball Hitter, and Rally Monkey. So Homebody is just it performs better when playing at home. He'll get a slight attribute boost. I don't know what the number is, but he gets a slight attribute boost at home stadium. Night Player is a similar situation to Homebody, except it's just at night games in general, both home and away. For Unfazed, he gets a boost on his hitting when he has 2 strikes in a count. Obviously, this is a very good quirk to have because if you think about it, how many times in a game are you in a 2-strike count? It's going to be pretty frequent most of the time. The 2 most important quirks in my mind are both Dead Red and Breaking Ball Hitter. These 2 quirks boost hitting on specific pitches. So for example, Dead Red excels at hitting fastballs. If you throw a fastball and Mike Trout makes contact with that fastball, because of the Dead Red quirk, he's going to have better hitting against fastballs than a player who wouldn't have Dead Red on. This basically gives him a small attribute boost against fastballs specifically, which could be a really good reason of why Mike Trout absolutely hammers fastballs. Similar to Dead Red, Breaking Ball Hitter works the exact same way Dead Red does, but it's with breaking balls. If you have both of these together like Mike Trout has, that is a deadly combo that will destroy any pitching you put up against him. And then the last quirk that Mike Trout has is Rally Monkey. This is a very, very, very good quirk. You perform better when your team is behind. So when you come up to the plate, you're down 2 with man on base, and Mike Trout hits a clutch 3-run home run to take the lead, his stats get boosted and he could hit better. That's going to be it for today's video, y'all. I hope you learned a thing or two about the stats for hitting in this game. I am planning to do a video on pitching as well, so you know which stats to focus on if you want to make a World Series push in the last season of MLB The Show 22. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please be sure to leave a like on the video. Sub to the channel. We have a lot more content coming your way, especially for future games. If I missed something, or if you think it's something different or I got something wrong, please leave a comment on this video. I'm curious to know what y'all think. I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one.